Guys, if you remember a couple weeks ago, I got the Espada Large from Cold Steel, and I like it. A bunch of you guys found me on social media and said if I like this knife, I should try out this knife because I might love it as well. And spoiler alert, you were wrong. So let's turn this around and take a look at one of the worst knives I've ever bought. All right, guys. So when you recommended this Kershaw knife, now this is the Kershaw Strata XL, I looked at it and I thought, why not? You guys said if I liked this knife, that I would probably love it. And at first glance, let's get this box out of the way. At first glance, they are very similar. They're both based off of a Navaja. They have a very distinct, similar shape, but that's where the similarities end. So let's go ahead and get this. We'll do some more side-by-side comparison in a minute, but let's get this out of the way, because I'm about to rip this knife a new one. This is possibly the worst knife I've purchased, and there is going to be no real good things about this. At first blush, it does have a very similar shape to the Cold Steel Espada, large Espada, I should say, and it is like loosely based off of a Navaja, just like the Espada. This thing is absolutely horrible. So it's done in D2 steel, not a fan of D2. It's done in a stonewash, a bead blast, which is possibly the worst finish you can put on D2. So let's look at what it is. So it's G10. It's got these copper inlays on it with I'm pretty sure this is steel. I haven't checked it. We're going to check for certain. Yeah, that's a steel liner, steel frame lock with this deep carry pocket clip. Really thin blade, long blade done in kind of a clip point, more of a drop point fashion. And this is one of the Kershaws that's made in China. Now, I've never been a real big fan of Kershaw knives, and that's not what I'm basing this off of. This is literally going to be a rant on what is a knife. I'm sorry, I try not to curse. There's going to be a lot of beeping in this, but this is ostensibly one of the worst knives I've ever bought. So, first of all, flipper action. Horrible. It is very, very weak action on this. It's got a weak detent. It's hard to get it to deploy. It's a big, long blade, but it's also done in one of the thinnest blade stocks. And I mean, can you guys see that? Like, I literally could put on gloves and break this knife. It's done in a steel frame lock, which I do have to say they did a good job with weight reduction. This is not a very heavy knife, but that weight reduction and everything comes at a price because this feels very, very cheap. I mean, it was not an expensive knife to begin with, but it feels very, very cheap. G10, and then these copper inlays. Now, I did a live feed yesterday where this got dropped on the floor. There it is. And this came out, and I got to looking at it, and this was really not even glued in. It's still sticky. So whatever glue they used is just some sort of, I don't know, adhesive, mildly sticky adhesive. It's kind of sticky in there. It could be honey or maple syrup. So that fell out. And then even before I dropped it, these were things that I had noticed before I dropped it. It came off center. It's not horribly off center because I did tighten the pivot down a little bit more. But it came off center even before I dropped this. This has got some of the worst sloppy blade play. Now, I tightened the pivot down as tight as I can get it, and it still has got this horrible blade. And some of you are like, why are you bashing on this knife? Because there's some of you out there that may see this knife and think you want to buy it, and I don't recommend it. The next thing is, when this opens up, this is your over travel stop. So this is screwed in, but this as well, even before I dropped it, is loose. So when you grab a hold of this, you can feel that move around. It moves around, and it's horrible. Now, you could look at this and say, okay, but you know, the Cold Steel Espada has some of those same things. It's fairly thin. It's almost this. I mean, it's not that much thicker blade stock. This is 0.13. I measured it yesterday, and this is 0.152-ish, depending on where you're at, between 152, 156 in that range. 0.152, 156. This is so much better feeling a knife. And I have another Cold Steel we're going to look at in a minute, and I'll compare it to. So I don't know why I forgot, but I said I was going to compare this knife, and I'll throw this somewhere in a video. I was going to compare this knife to another Cold Steel. This is a better knife, in my opinion, than this knife. This knife is $55. This is $10. This is the Cold Steel Kudu ring lock, and this is I mean, this is definitely, if you're going to go with a cheap knife with a thin blade stock, this is a better knife. I don't know how you can make a knife that is so much more expensive and nowhere near as good as a $10 to $15 knife, but they have. So now let's go back to the main body of the video. Sorry, like I said, this is filmed after. I didn't realize that I did not include this. But this thing is horrible. This knife is really comfortable in hand. It's really, really good in hand. This absolutely is not. This, not only is it too thin this way, it's way too thin this way, right? It's just light everywhere. It just feels crappy. Let's put this away. Let's put the good knife. We don't want the good knife to be, and that's not even a great knife. It's a good knife. It's surprisingly good for its size. It's just so bad. And the fact is that so many people are recommending this. The other thing, jimping on this. It's ridiculous. It doesn't need to be there. It's not good jimping. Like I said, blade is really thin. It is poorly ground. It's misground from side to side. The tip is really rounded over. And to be honest, it's not very sharp. It wasn't sharp from the factory. Other things about this. So like I said, not only is it thin this way, it's really narrow everywhere. It just feels sharp and angular. It just doesn't feel like there's enough knife there. The pocket clip, even though this is a long knife and you shouldn't have, now granted, I do have big hands, above average size hands. This digs into my hand, even though it's far down here. And then it's just a garbage, like single side, single piece, deep carry pocket clip that it could easily put a different pocket clip on this and made it ambidextrous. It's everything, just so bad. And then the lock bar. So the lock bar is fairly stiff, but it really doesn't have good detent. So it's stiff, and that's a lot of times that happens with a steel lock bar. A steel frame lock. They have a tendency to be difficult to disengage, but then not have the same spring tension you would get out of a titanium frame lock, where the detent is. And then on top of that, this blade is just so heavy. It needed to have something like this, like a thumb plate. This is one of those knives that struggles to be a flipper. It really does. It doesn't have the good action and detent, and then it's got a big heavy blade, which means that it happens a lot of times that you miss the deployment on it. And then, like I said, in hand, it just rolls out of the way. It is just not a good knife, but the big one for me is it has a ton of blade play. Even worse now, I mean, even worse before when I first got it. It is so loose and sloppy in that pivot. Hear that? So loose and sloppy in that pivot, and I have tightened this down as far as I can tighten it. Like, it will not tighten any further. It is down on its maximum, as tight as I can get it, because I guarantee these are this stop pin is kind of shouldered, and that's what's stopping it from going any tighter. So, I mean, of all the knives I've purchased, and like I said, never have been a big fan of Kershaw. I think they're kind of crappy knives to begin with. This one is by far the worst. And I was kind of expecting more. I was hoping that it would be something similar, because I wanted to, you know, I'm kind of enjoying this like Navaja style knife. Yeah, really, really disappointing. Is it a yup or not? Absolutely. No, the wrong one. Do not waste your money. Absolutely. Do not waste your money. Even though it is only like $50. I don't remember. This was one of my New Year's Eve intoxicated purchases. If you guys don't know, my father died on Christmas. I usually spend a period between the 23rd and about the 3rd just drunk the entire time. I'm not bragging. It's not a good thing. I don't recommend it, but it's just something I do because it makes me tolerable to be around while I'm mourning that period. So I got it, and I'm super disappointed. This is one of the first knives I've ever thought about returning. Very rarely have I thought I need to send this knife back. So guys, just stay away from it. Stay away from it. I'm kind of disappointed that I listened to some of y'all, and the fact that some of you recommended this, I find even more disappointing. But we have a couple of good knives coming, so we're going to look at those. Guys, let's turn this around and do some final thoughts on this knife rant. Yeah, guys, this thing's absolutely horrible. And the fact that I can't tighten the pivot up enough to get rid of the blade play, and the over travel stop rattles when you move it around. This is possibly the worst knife I've ever bought. And it doesn't surprise me because in my experience, Kershaws are just simple crap. So sorry, not sorry. Guys, that's it on this one. If you like the video, this is all you guys' fault, by the way. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. But tell me why. I can't change the content if you don't tell me what you don't like. If you want to support the channel, lots of affiliate links down below. You can simply take those links, use them for your shopping. It doesn't cost you anything extra at checkout, especially that Amazon store. I get a portion of it. There's 2 links down there that save you 10% just by using a link. Coffee Brand Coffee, Tempered Trail. Check those sites out. They are amazing. I know both the people that run them. They are great, great folks. I also have a membership down below. Get into that one. You get early access to videos, exclusive content. And I have a public Discord where you can hit me up in the DM section. It says join the community. You can hit me up there, ask me questions, or if you have knives that we'd like to send in for review, absolutely up for that. Guys, that's it on this one. I love you all. Keep it clean in the comments section. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. Stop sending me crappy knife ideas, and I will see you in the next video.